of such unpredictable changes. Addressing climate changes, namely those posed by the relentless and unprecedented rise in sea levels, requires a coordinated, urgent, and effective response from all of us. As a global community, we must act in solidarity with those on the front lines and engage in a serious and responsible dialogue about the realities and rights of the most affected communities and countries. This will entail a significant reinforcement of international commitments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In addition, it is important to create robust financial mechanisms to support the most vulnerable countries and communities in implementing adaptation measures, in protecting their coastal zones, in anticipating and planning climate mobility, as well as through legal instruments that recognize and respond appropriately to this new reality in order to increase resilience, protect the rights, and offer new opportunities. Finally, we need a holistic approach that combines development of sustainable livelihood, restoration of ecosystems, adaptation of infrastructures, and preservation of cultural heritage to support the most vulnerable countries and communities. This high-level meeting represents a unique opportunity to drive multilateral action and should result in a redoubled commitment from each of us and in coordinated and comprehensive actions by the United Nations system, providing strong support to the most affected countries and communities. This is clearly not the end, but a beginning, and I'm confident that we are writing the opening chapter of a long global journey. Thank you for your attention.
I thank the President of the Republic of Cabo Verde. I now give the floor to His Excellency Wavel Ramkalawan, President of the Republic of Seychelles.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, sea level rise is no longer a distant threat. It is a daily reality, particularly for small island states, where the encroaching ocean threatens our homes and livelihoods. With limited options for retreat, the costs of mitigation and adaptation are alarmingly high, straining our already scarce resources. Every year, the sea inches closer, eroding land, threatening homes, and jeopardizing infrastructure, leaving us in constant fear for our safety and the future of our communities. In Seychelles, our economy relies heavily on tourism and fishing, industries directly imperiled by coastal erosion. As our shores recede, so does our economic stability, and with it, our food security. Protecting our environment becomes increasingly challenging as vital coastal ecosystems are under threat, jeopardizing vital coastal protection, carbon sequestration, and nutrient cycling. Preserving these natural functions is essential for our survival. Despite pioneering initiatives such as debt for nature swaps, and sovereign blue bonds, Seychelles still lacks the necessary finance and technology to adequately address sea level rise. Our 2021 NDCs estimate that close to $671 million USD is required to implement the necessary mitigation and adaptation measures by 2030. The African Development Bank estimated in 2023 that Seychelles would require an astounding 1.25 billion USD to respond adequately to climate change cumulatively up to 2030. These figures make it clear that climate action cannot be backed by our national budget alone. Our path to sustainable development is threatened by the very waters that surround us. Tackling the rising seas requires a comprehensive approach that addresses the complexities of climate change, finance, and international law. Our discussions today must reflect the urgency of this crisis, placing people at the heart of our solutions. Without urgent global action to curb emissions and support adaptive measures, sea level rise could lead to widespread displacement, food insecurity, and the loss of cultural heritage, fundamentally altering lives of millions. Let this be the moment where we stand together with resolve and determination to secure a sustainable, dignified, and resilient future for all. I thank you.
I thank His Excellency, the President of Seychelles. Sorry for the mispronunciation earlier on. I now give the floor to His Excellency Edgars Rinkēvičs, the President of the Republic of Latvia.
Excellencies, the pressing issue of sea level rise requires our undivided attention. It is a global issue. But for the low-lying and small island developing states, it's an issue of existential nature. We need to advance the implementation of the Antigua and Barbuda agenda for small island developing states. We must deliver on sustainable development. It is in the best interest of all of us. That is also the commitment of the Summit of the Future, to deliver for everyone, everywhere, in a challenging world. It is essential to accelerate climate finance, especially for the nations carrying the hardest burden of the sea level rise, to support mitigation, adaptation, and resilience efforts. Latvia has contributed to the United Nations Central Emergency Response Fund, and we will support the United Nations Loss and Damage Fund. Latvia is committed to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. We are in the 13th place globally for achievement of sustainable development goals. Latvia stands ready to share expertise on building a digitally enabled climate action. Latvia follows closely the legal implications of the sea level rise. It stems from our specific historic experience in relation to the state continuity. A clear legal framework is essential to address the threats and to strengthen rules-based international order. Latvia welcomes the advisory opinion of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea on obligations of states to prevent marine pollution. We will continue to engage in these processes in respect of climate change. We will continue to follow the work of the International Law Commission on the sea level rise in relation to international law. Climate change undeniably is a risk for global peace and security. It must be addressed by the United Nations Security Council. And we will continue to highlight this issue if Latvia is elected to Security Council in 2025. Thank you.
I thank the President of the Republic of Latvia. I now give the floor to His Excellency Ala Karis, President of the Republic of Estonia.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege and pleasure to address this esteemed gathering today. Estonia is a maritime country with more than 3,000 kilometers of sea border. We are seamen. Sea is our heritage and part of our livelihood. We feel bonded with all maritime states which have very close interaction through oceans and seas. We have several thousand small islands impacted directly from a sea level rise. Climate change fuels a problem that has brought us together today. the threat of sea level rise. Unfortunately, it affects some of the most vulnerable countries much more rapidly than expected. I want to highlight that I share your concern. It is our common worry. To deal with the impact of climate change, we need to cooperate even more distinctively. We can start by sharing the best practices regarding the solutions we have used to deal with climate change and with the threats posed by the sea level rise. Also, it's very important to engage with local communities and indigenous peoples, those who are the most vulnerable and who have the best overview of developments on the ground. The first meeting regarding the sea level rise is a good start to put forward new ideas. I would support first to establish a close international cooperation between our scientists to exchange science-based evidence of what is happening with global climate. We'll also need to regularly share the measures of the impacts of a sea level fluctuation. Based on this, we could provide risk scenarios. There are countries that have been already substantially impacted by the sea level rise and others who are expecting it, and thus we need to proceed also with risk management. I would strongly encourage to use innovative approaches to support monitoring and risk analysis. We should use EA and all available means to develop relevant environmental and climate impact maps. As a conclusion, I would like to highlight a global initiative which was born in Estonia, a World Cleanup Day. This has now become officially a United Nations Day, and the global cleanup took place just 5 days ago, on the 20th of September. I truly believe that we can use the same collaborative drive for massive cleanup for our oceans and seas. For Estonia, global climate commitments remain our priority. Thank you very much for your attention.
I thank the President of the Republic of Estonia. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mohamed Muizu, President of the Republic of Maldives.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, good morning. In 1989, the Maldives hosted the first international conference on small states on sea level rise. That conference, in its outcome document, the Mali Declaration on Global Warming and Sea Level Rise, recognized sea level rise as a common concern for humankind, that it would cause extensive damage to land and infrastructure. The conference called for urgent action against sea level rise, the availability of resources and technology, and continuous dialogue on the issue of sea level rise. It also called for establishing a working group, which eventually became the Alliance of Small Island States, to advocate and champion for SIDS in the fight for greater climate action. A fight we are delighted has reached the hallowed halls of the General Assembly today. For an emergency is upon us, threatening our way of life, our cultural identity, and our heritage, increasing and intensifying adverse weather and natural disasters, affecting in turn the well-being of our people, eroding our development gains, and putting our economy at risk. Climate change and resulting sea level rise demands urgent, consistent, and coordinated global action. Action that enhances the adaptive capacity of coastal communities and low-lying island states that are most susceptible. Let me outline 3 such actions. First, urgently increase the provision of and access to adaptation finance. Adaptation support has not caught up to the rate of climate degradation. We call to urgently address the imbalance between mitigation and adaptation. We urge to double adaptation financing. We ask to remove the tedious approval procedures and conditions to access finance, and encourage financing on a needs basis. Without support towards our specific adaptation needs, the targets set out in the Paris Agreement and the 2030 Agenda cannot be achieved. We need political will and a coherent approach. A necessary first step is to incorporate the promise enshrined in the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for Seeds into the international development and climate financing framework. Second, operationalize loss and damage fund. And third, transfer technology. We have the science, we have the knowledge, and we have the tools to combat climate change. In 1987, our capital city, Male, was inundated with sea swells. We have the will to thrive. Our call to action, our fight to live on, will survive. Thank you.
I thank the President of the Republic of Maldives. I now give the floor to His Excellency Prithvi Raj Singh Ruban, President of the Republic of Mauritius.
Madam President, Excellencies, as we speak, climate change is disrupting the way we live and the livelihood of millions.